You can describe the person you meant to be in detail. What time he gets up, what he's finished, how he handles the thing you've been avoiding. You've been describing him for years. He has never once shown up. And you're not confused. You know what he'd be doing tonight instead of this. You know the first step. You've known it for a very long time. So knowing was never the missing piece. Here's the accusation. You haven't been failing to change. You've been outsourcing it. Every hard thing in your life has been assigned to a person who doesn't exist yet. Future you. That's the enemy here. And he's an incredible employee. Disciplined. Well-rested. Nothing overdue. Never sick. Never distracted. Never has a week where everything goes wrong. Which is convenient, because you keep giving him all the worst jobs. The gym membership starts with him. The book gets written by him. The hard conversation happens after him. You're not avoiding your life, exactly. You're forwarding it. There's a difference, and the difference is the problem. There's a guitar somewhere in your house. Or a language app you haven't opened since spring. Or running shoes with the soles still white. Every one of those was bought by someone who was completely certain. That's the tell. You didn't buy the guitar for you. You bought it for him. Equipment is a down payment on a person you haven't become. And the receipt feels, briefly, like proof you're becoming him. Sunday night is when he's loudest. You make the list. Gym at 6, phone away by 10, the email you've owed someone since March. And it feels good. That good feeling is the whole thing we need to look at. Because making the plan feels like doing the thing. Not the same amount, but enough. You go to bed lighter than you woke up. Something got resolved that night. Nothing got done. By Wednesday, the list is a document you avoid opening. By the next Sunday, you write it again, nearly word for word. You are not failing to change. You are succeeding, weekly, at planning to. So why does a promise feel like a payment? Why does the plan settle something the work was supposed to settle? There are 3 reasons stacked on top of each other, and the first one is genuinely strange. Researchers have put people in scanners and asked them to think about themselves now, then themselves in 10 years. Present you produces one pattern of activity. Future you produces a noticeably different one. And that second pattern drifts toward the one you get when people think about somebody else entirely. Not identical, but measurably closer. On some level, your brain files your future self under other people. Which explains a lot. You don't feel guilty handing him the work, because it doesn't feel like handing it to yourself. It feels like delegating. And delegating to a stranger is easy. You'll never meet him. And you delegate generously. You would never book yourself for a 6 a.m. gym session, 2 hours of deep work, and a difficult phone call in one day. But he can take it. He's not real, so he never gets tired. It also explains the arithmetic. Every choice is a trade, something now or something better later. But later belongs to him. You do the work, the stranger collects. You keep declining that deal, and honestly, who wouldn't? That's reason 1. Reason 2 is worse, because it turns your own imagination against you. It takes the thing that's supposed to pull you forward and quietly uses it as a sedative. There's a long line of research on positive fantasies, the daydream where you picture the finished version. Fit, published, fluent. People who indulge those images vividly tend to do less about them, not more. Not because they wanted it less. Because the daydream hands you a small advance on the feeling. For about 90 seconds you get to be the person. Then you're relaxed. And relaxed people do not start things. So the vision meant to pull you forward is the thing settling you back down. And the more detailed the fantasy, the better it pays. Which is why the best imagined lives are so often the least lived. It's also why you can lose an entire evening comparing training programs and finish with nothing changed. The research felt like progress. It was a longer daydream with a browser open. Now reason 3, and this one has a witness. You tell a friend you're going back to school. You get the face. That's great, they say. I can absolutely see it. And something inside you settles. There's research suggesting that announcing an identity goal can give you a premature sense of having arrived. Someone treated you as the person. That recognition was a real part of what you were after. So the credit gets collected first. And now the actual work has to compete with a job that's already been paid for. That's a fight the work loses almost every single time. None of this means you're lying. You mean it every time. You're just spending the reward on the announcement instead of on the year, and there's only ever one payment available. Underneath all 3 of those sits one assumption: doing the load-bearing work. You quietly believe future you will have it easier than present you. More room, fewer emergencies, a calmer life to start from. Researchers who study how people forecast their own time keep finding the same lean. We expect next month to be roomier than this one. Emptier. Like a calendar nobody's written on yet. It is a calendar nobody's written on yet. That's the only difference between the months. Every single month you have ever actually lived through arrived full, and this one will too. So the plan is staffed by someone with time you'll never have, energy you don't get, and a week where nothing goes wrong. Of course it collapses on Tuesday. It was never scheduled for a real person. Here's the part that stings slightly. You already know this gap. You've been quietly measuring yourself against him for years, every day, without ever once saying it out loud. Because every night you don't do the thing, you don't simply not do it. You lose a small argument about who you are. Then you file the result away. And they add up faster than you'd think. That's why the guitar stays. Selling it would settle the question, and you don't want the question settled. So it sits there gathering dust, charging you a very specific feeling every time you walk past. And after enough of those walks past, something shifts. You stop feeling like someone who hasn't started yet. You start feeling like someone who says things. That reframe is the genuinely expensive part. So here's the relief, and it's real. The gap isn't evidence you're a fraud. It's evidence you've been paying in the wrong currency. You've paid in intentions for a decade, and intentions don't clear. You do want it. That was never in question. Wanting is the one part of this you have done consistently, sincerely, and extremely well for years. It's just not the part that counts toward anything. And before you argue, yes, you have changed. Look at what changed, though. Most of it happened when your circumstances moved. A new job, a new city, someone arrived, or someone left. Which means change has mostly happened to you. That's not damning. It's a clue. What moved you was always a real situation with a real date attached, never a promise about a better person. And some of this gap is fine, by the way. Having a version of yourself you're walking toward is a good thing to own. The trouble only starts when he becomes a resident instead of a direction. So here's the test. Ask when the last actual instance was. Not the plan, not the research, not the conversation about it. One instance. If a 3-year-old promise has 0, you don't have a goal. You have a costume. All right. For things. And the first one takes about 10 minutes tonight. None of it requires you to feel motivated, which is lucky, because you won't. 1. Meet him. Not the highlight version. The Tuesday version. Write out what an ordinary Tuesday looks like in 5 years if literally nothing changes. Wake up time. Work. Evening. What's on the screen at 9? It's an unpleasant 10 minutes. And the unpleasantness is the mechanism. In one line of research, people shown a realistically aged image of their own face went on to set aside more money for their future selves. Make the stranger recognizable, and you start treating him like family. You can't render your own face, but you can render the Tuesday. Boring and specific beats inspiring and vague, because inspiring and vague is what got you here. 2. Stop paying in intentions and pay in evidence. Tonight, do one instance of the thing, at whatever size fits the time you actually have left. Not the real version. Any version. Badly counts. 10 minutes counts. There's a whole thing about why small steps work that deserves its own video. Tonight it's simpler than that. You need one fact. Facts are the only thing that argument about who you are listens to. And keep it quiet for a while. Don't announce it. Don't post the photo. Collect 4 or 5 instances before anyone else finds out, so the recognition arrives after the work instead of it. 3. Give every promise an expiry date. Pick a real one. End of the month. If a promise has produced no instances by then, it does not get renewed automatically, the way it has been for years. Then you either shrink it until it fits a real Tuesday, or you retire it out loud. Saying I'm not learning Italian costs something. It should. The alternative is carrying it another decade for free. 4. Staff your plans with the person who'll actually be there. Before you write the plan, write down what's likely to go wrong at that exact hour. Tired after work. Kids awake. Nothing dramatic. Because being tired after work isn't the reason it failed. It's a design input. If a plan can't survive one ordinary bad Tuesday, it isn't a plan for you. It's a plan for him, and he isn't coming. So, meet the Tuesday version of yourself. Pay in instances, not intentions. Put an expiry date on every promise you've been renewing. And build for the person who actually turns up in the room. The person you meant to be was never going to arrive, because he was never a person. He was a direction wearing a costume. You don't have to become him tonight. You just have to do one thing he'd have done, badly, before bed. That gap closes from this side. Always has. That's what this channel is for. The ordinary reasons ordinary people get stuck. Explained honestly, without pretending you have to become someone else first. I'm Theo. Stick around. Nothing here starts on Monday.